Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Everyday English Channel. We are so excited to have you here with us today. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Jack. This is the place where we explore English as it's actually lived. Messy, complicated, and deeply connected to the things that make us human. And today, we're talking about something that might seem simple on the surface, but is actually one of the most intimate, complex, revealing aspects of who we are. We're talking about food. Specifically, your favorite foods and what they say about you, your memories, your culture, and your life.
Food. It's not just fuel. It's not just taste. It's memory, identity, comfort, culture, rebellion, tradition, and sometimes trauma all wrapped up in a single bite. Show me someone's favorite food, and I'll show you their story.
That's so true. And I think we take food for granted because we eat multiple times a day, every day. It's so ordinary that we forget how extraordinary it actually is. But when you really think about your favorite foods, there's always a why behind them.
There's always a why. It's never just, I like pizza because it tastes good. There's a memory attached, a person, a place, a feeling. Food carries emotional weight that almost nothing else does.
So let's start with the obvious question. Jack, what's your absolute favorite food? And I don't want the answer you give at dinner parties. I want the real answer. The food that if you could only eat one thing for the rest of your life, this would be it.
Okay, real answer. My grandmother's chicken soup. Not chicken noodle soup from a restaurant, not the fancy bone broth that costs $15 at the trendy cafe. My grandmother's specific chicken soup that she made every Friday when I was growing up.
And that's not really about the soup, is it?
No, I mean, the soup is delicious. She made it with this whole chicken, parsnips, carrots, celery, onions, and these tiny egg noodles that she would sometimes make by hand. But the soup is my grandmother. The soup is Friday afternoons in her kitchen. The soup is feeling safe and loved and like everything was going to be okay.
Food as love. That's so fundamental to the human experience. And yet we rarely talk about it explicitly. But your grandmother wasn't just feeding you. She was telling you she loved you in the only language that mattered.
Exactly. And now, when I make that soup, because I have her recipe written in her handwriting on a card that's stained and worn, I'm not just making food, I'm having a conversation with her. She died 5 years ago, but every time I make that soup, she's there.
Oh, Jack, that's beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time. Food as connection across time and even across death. That's powerful. But it also raises the question, can you ever really recreate someone else's dish? Or is it always going to taste like an approximation?
It's always an approximation, because even if I follow the recipe exactly, I'm not her. I don't have her hands, I don't have her timing, I don't have the specific pot she used for 40 years, and I'm eating it in my apartment, not her kitchen. The context is different, so the experience is different.
So when people say, this tastes just like my mom used to make, or this is exactly like the original, they're kind of lying, aren't they? Or at least they're engaging in a beautiful fiction.
They're chasing a memory, and that's okay. That's what food does. It's a time machine. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be close enough to trigger the memory, to bring back the feeling. That's what matters.
Food as a time machine. I love that. Because my favorite food is probably my dad's spaghetti carbonara, and it's the same thing. He made it every Sunday night for years. Basic recipe, eggs, bacon, parmesan, black pepper, and pasta. Nothing fancy, but it represents Sunday evenings as a family. All of us at the table talking about our week.
Did your dad learn it from his family, or was it something he just started making? Neither, actually. He saw it on a cooking show in the 80s and decided to try it. And it became his thing, which I think is interesting because it wasn't a family tradition passed down through generations. It was just something he chose. And through repetition and consistency, it became our family tradition.
That's how traditions start, isn't it? Someone just decides to do something, and if they keep doing it, it becomes meaningful. It becomes the thing that defines family gatherings or holidays or regular Tuesday nights.
Exactly. And now, as an adult living in a different city, when I make carbonara, I'm reaching back to those Sunday nights. I'm trying to recreate not just the food, but the feeling of being home, of being a family, of everything being simpler than it is now.
Do you think food tastes different when you're a child versus when you're an adult? Because I remember foods from my childhood that seemed magical, and when I try them now as an adult, they're just okay. Did they change or did I change?
You changed. Your palate developed. Your brain associated those foods with specific emotional states that you can't fully access anymore. But I also think there's something about the way children experience taste, more intensely, more purely, without all the complications and analysis that adults bring to it.
Kids just eat what tastes good. They're not thinking about nutrition or calories or whether the ingredients are organic. They're not performing their food choices for an Instagram audience. They just eat and enjoy.
Or they don't enjoy, and they're very vocal about it. Kids are brutally honest about food in a way that adults aren't. We've all learned to be polite, to say, it's interesting, when we mean, I hate this. Kids just say, this is disgusting, and refuse to eat it.
That unfiltered honesty is actually kind of refreshing, although it's also why cooking for children is so stressful. But let's talk about the foods that people claim to love but maybe don't actually love, the performative favorite foods.
Oh, this is going to be controversial. Okay, I'll go first. Sushi. I think a lot of people say sushi is their favorite food because it sounds sophisticated and worldly. But do they actually love it, or do they love the idea of being someone who loves sushi?
That's bold. You're attacking sushi. But I see your point. There's definitely a social currency to certain foods. Saying you love sushi or oysters or caviar signals something about your cultural capital, your adventurousness, your sophistication.
And maybe some people genuinely love those foods, but I think there's also a lot of people who've convinced themselves they love things because they're supposed to love them, because it fits the identity they want to project.
So, what would you say your performative favorite food is? The one you tell people about versus the one you actually eat when you're alone and no one's watching?
When no one's watching, boxed macaroni and cheese, the kind with the powdered cheese that's basically radioactive orange. I know it's not real cheese, I know it's processed nonsense, but something about that specific texture and that artificial cheese flavor just hits differently.
See, that's honest. And I bet a lot of people have that divide. The foods they admit to loving in public versus the foods they actually crave when
Gas station taquitos? That's amazing. But why do they appeal to you? What's the draw?
I think it's nostalgia for college road trips. Driving at night, stopping at gas stations, eating questionable food, feeling free and young and like anything was possible. Those taquitos taste like being 22 and stupid and happy.
So even our guilty pleasure foods, which is a term I hate, by the way, because food shouldn't come with guilt, even those foods have emotional resonance. They're not just about taste, they're about who we were when we first encountered them.
Food shouldn't come with guilt. Let's talk about that for a second, because I think food morality is one of the most destructive things in our culture. We categorize foods as good or bad, and then we judge ourselves and others based on what we eat.
Good foods and bad foods, clean eating and cheat days, it's all so moralistic and damaging. Like, if you eat a salad, you're virtuous. If you eat a burger, you're being bad. But food is just food. It doesn't have moral value.
And this moralization makes it really hard to have an honest relationship with food. People are so busy feeling guilty about what they eat that they can't actually enjoy it. They eat the bad food, but they hate themselves while doing it, which is the worst of both worlds.
Exactly. If you're going to eat the cake, eat the cake. Don't eat it while mentally calculating how long you'll need to exercise to burn it off. Don't eat it while promising yourself you'll be good tomorrow. Just eat the cake and move on with your life.
Just eat the cake. That should be on a t-shirt. But this brings up something interesting. How much of our relationship with food is about the food itself versus the stories we tell ourselves about the food?
Almost none of it is about the food itself. It's all stories. You eat your grandmother's soup and you're telling yourself a story about family and tradition and love. You eat the gas station taquito, and you're telling yourself a story about freedom and youth. You eat the salad, and you're telling yourself a story about being healthy and disciplined.
So our favorite foods are really our favorite stories about ourselves. The foods that reinforce the narrative we want to believe about who we are, or who we were, or who we're trying to become.
That's kind of profound, and it explains why people get so defensive about their favorite foods. If you criticize my favorite food, you're not just criticizing my taste, you're criticizing my story, my memories, my identity.
People go to war over food opinions. Pineapple on pizza, ketchup on hot dogs, the correct way to eat sushi. These debates get heated because they're not really about the food. They're about defending your identity and your worldview.
Pineapple on pizza. We have to talk about this because it's the most polarizing food debate of our time. Where do you stand?
I'm pro pineapple on pizza, and before people come after me, here's why. The sweet and salty combination works. The acidity of the pineapple cuts through the richness of the cheese. It's a legitimate flavor profile that appears in many cuisines. Hawaiian pizza is good, and I will die on this hill.
I respect your conviction, even though you're objectively wrong. Pineapple on pizza is an abomination. Fruit does not belong on pizza. Pizza is savory. Keep your dessert ingredients away from my dinner.
But tomatoes are fruit. So by your logic, pizza sauce is already a dessert ingredient.
Don't bring logic into this. This is about feelings and tradition and the way things should be. And pineapple on pizza is wrong. It's chaos. It's anarchy.
You see how quickly this escalated? We went from discussing favorite foods to declaring positions and defending them like it's a matter of life and death. That's the power of food opinions.
And the thing is, we're both right. I'm right that I don't like pineapple on pizza, and you're right that you do like it. But we treat it like there's an objective truth, like one of us is correct and the other is a heretic.
Because food preferences feel objective to us. They feel like facts rather than opinions. When you love something, it's hard to understand how someone else could not love it. It feels like they're missing something obvious.
This is probably why it's so hard when your favorite food is something that other people find disgusting. Like, I love anchovies. I think they're delicious. But most people react with horror when I mention them.
Anchovies are intensely polarizing. It's the salt and the fishiness and the texture. People either love them or can't stand them. There's no middle ground.
And when people react with disgust with something you love, it feels personal, like they're judging you for your taste. Even though intellectually you know it's just a preference, emotionally it stings a little.
Because you want to share the things you love. You want other people to understand why this thing brings you joy. And when they don't, when they actively dislike it, there's this sense of disappointment or disconnection.
Food as connection. That's what we're really talking about, isn't it? When we share food with someone, when we introduce them to our favorite dish, we're trying to create intimacy. We're trying to say, this is important to me, and I want you to understand why.
And the best food experiences are always shared. Even if you love something, eating it alone isn't quite the same as eating it with people you care about. The social context elevates the experience.
Although sometimes eating alone is exactly what you want. Sometimes you want to eat exactly what you want without negotiating or compromising or considering anyone else's preferences.
That's fair. There's a freedom in eating alone. You can eat cereal for dinner. You can eat ice cream straight from the container. You can eat things in weird combinations that would make other people judge you.
What's your weirdest food combination? The thing you eat when no one's watching that you'd be embarrassed to admit in public?
Peanut butter and pickle sandwiches. I know it sounds terrible, but the salt and the sweet and the crunch, it works for me. I discovered it by accident when I was a kid, and I've loved it ever since.
Peanut butter and pickles. That's actually not as weird as I expected. I've heard of that combination. Mine is more embarrassing. I dip French fries in my milkshake, sweet and salty together.
That's not embarrassing. That's practically mainstream at this point. French fries and a Frosty from Wendy's is a well-known combination. You need to dig deeper. What's the really weird one?
Fine. I eat popcorn with hot sauce and nutritional yeast, like a lot of hot sauce. And I tell myself it's healthy because nutritional yeast has B vitamins, but really it's just my weird snack addiction.
Popcorn with hot sauce and nutritional yeast. I can see that working, actually. The hot sauce adds heat, the nutritional yeast adds umami and a cheesy flavor. You've basically created a spicy, cheesy popcorn situation.
See, you're being too understanding. You're supposed to be horrified so I can feel appropriately embarrassed about my weird food habits.
I think the older I get, the less judgmental I am about food combinations. If it tastes good to you, it tastes good to you. Who am I to say it's wrong? Taste is subjective.
Taste is subjective, but it's also culturally conditioned. The things you grow up eating shake what you consider normal or delicious. If you grew up eating fermented fish, that's normal to you. If you didn't, it's horrifying.
Cultural conditioning is huge. I have a friend from Korea who loves kimchi and eats it with almost every meal. To her, it's as normal as ketchup. But a lot of Westerners find it too strong, too fermented, too weird. It's the same food, but totally different cultural contexts.
And when people say they love ethnic food or exotic food, what they really mean is food from cultures other than their own. But to people from those cultures, it's not exotic. It's just food. It's home.
That's an important distinction. Food that's exotic to you is ordinary to someone else, and calling it exotic creates this weird power dynamic where Western food is the norm and everything else is the interesting other.
So let's talk about comfort food, because I think everyone has those specific foods that they turn to when they're sad or stressed or sick. What's your ultimate comfort food?
Grilled cheese and tomato soup. It's what my mom made me when I stayed home sick from school. It's warm, it's simple, it's easy on an upset stomach, and it just feels like being taken care of.
Being taken care of. That's what comfort food is really about. It's not about the specific taste as much as the feeling of safety and care that it represents. For me, it's plain white rice with butter and salt. When nothing else sounds good, that always works.
Plain white rice with butter and salt. That's so simple, but I completely understand the appeal. Sometimes you don't want complexity or strong flavors. You just want something gentle and familiar.
And there's no shame in simple comfort foods. You don't need to be eating truffle risotto or some elaborate dish to find comfort. Sometimes the simplest foods are the most comforting because they're uncomplicated. They're not demanding anything from you.
They're not demanding anything from you. I love that framing, because when you're stressed or sad, you don't have the capacity for demanding foods. You need something that just nourishes you without requiring you to think or appreciate or analyze.
Let's talk about food and memory more specifically, because I think smell is the strongest trigger for memory, and smell is so connected to taste. Can you think of a time when a smell or a taste instantly transported you to a specific moment?
Cinnamon rolls baking. That smell immediately takes me back to Christmas mornings at my grandparents' house. My grandmother would have cinnamon rolls in the oven when we arrived, and that smell meant Christmas, meant family, meant being young and excited and loved.
Smell as a time machine. It's almost instantaneous, isn't it? You smell something and suddenly you're not in your current kitchen, you're in your grandmother's kitchen 20 years ago. You're experiencing the memory as if it's happening again.
It's visceral. It's not like remembering something intellectually. It's like your body remembers. You feel the feelings, you see the images, you hear the sounds, all from a smell.
For me, it's the smell of fresh basil. My mom grew basil in the garden every summer, and she would make pesto from scratch. That smell means summer, means being outside, means my mom's hands covered in basil and olive oil, means long evenings on the patio.
These food memories are so specific and so powerful, and I wonder if that's part of why people are so attached to traditional foods and recipes, because they're not just preserving a way of cooking, they're preserving memories and connections and a sense of continuity.
Preserving continuity. That's beautiful. When you make your grandmother's recipe, you're part of a chain that extends backwards and potentially forwards. You're connecting past and future through this act of cooking and eating.
And when traditional recipes are lost, when they die with someone who didn't write them down or teach them, there's a real sense of loss. Because you're not just losing a recipe, you're losing a piece of family history, a piece of cultural identity.
That's why I think it's important to ask older relatives about their recipes and techniques while they're still here. Don't wait until it's too late. Ask them to teach you, write it down, record it, because once they're gone, that knowledge is gone too.
And it's not just the ingredients and steps, it's the little things that don't get written down. The way they know something is done by looking at it or touching it. The way they add a pinch of this or cook until it looks right. That intuitive knowledge is hard to capture but so important.
Cooking as intuition, that's something you can only learn through practice and observation. You can't get it from a recipe. You have to stand next to someone and watch them and slowly absorb their understanding.
Which is why cooking shows and recipe blogs can only take you so far. They give you the mechanics, but they can't give you the intuition. That comes from repetition and experience, and sometimes failure.
Failure. Let's talk about that, because I think everyone has food disasters in their past, times when they tried to make something and it went horribly wrong. What's your worst cooking failure?
I once tried to make homemade caramel, and I burned it so badly that the smell lingered in my apartment for days. The pot was basically ruined. I had to throw it away. It was a disaster, but I learned a lot about temperature control and paying attention.
There's something almost beautiful about cooking failures, because they teach you in a way that success doesn't. When something goes right, you just enjoy it. When something goes wrong, you have to figure out why and how to fix it.
And the best cooks are people who failed a lot. They've burned things and under-seasoned things and created unintentional disasters. But they kept going. They learned from each failure.
So if someone's watching this and they're afraid to cook, afraid to try making their favorite foods because they might fail, what would you tell them?
You will fail. Accept that now. Your first attempt will probably not be great, maybe not even your second or third, but that's okay. Failure is part of the process, and even failed food is usually edible. It might not be what you envisioned, but it will still fill your stomach.
And sometimes failed food leads to new discoveries. Some of the best recipes came from accidents or mistakes. Chocolate chip cookies were supposedly an accident. Worcestershire sauce was a failed attempt at recreating an Indian recipe.
The happy accidents of food history. Although I suspect some of those stories are exaggerated for marketing purposes. But the point stands. Don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to fail. That's how you find your own favorite foods.
Your own favorite foods. Not the ones you're supposed to like, not the ones that other people love, but the ones that speak to you for whatever reason, because of the taste, the memory, the feeling, the story.
And those favorite foods will probably change over time. The foods you loved as a child might not appeal to you as an adult. The foods you love now might not appeal to you in 10 years. We're constantly evolving, and our tastes evolve with us.
That's kind of reassuring, actually. You're not stuck with the same preferences forever. You can grow. You can discover new things. You can let go of old things that no longer serve you.
Although some favorite foods are permanent, I don't think I'll ever stop loving my grandmother's chicken soup. That's a forever food for me. But other things come and go, depending on what's happening in my life and who I'm becoming.
Forever foods. I like that term. The foods that will always feel like home no matter how much you change or where you go. For me, my dad's carbonara is a forever food. I'll love it until I die.
And maybe the mark of a true favorite food is that you never get tired of it. Some foods you can love intensely for a while and then you burn out on them. But the real favorites, you can eat them over and over, and they never lose their appeal.
They never lose their appeal because they're not just about taste. They're about connection and memory and identity. They're about who you are and where you come from and what matters to you.
So when someone asks you about your favorite food, they're really asking you to tell them your story. They're asking who you are. And that's a much deeper question than it appears on the surface.
Which is why these conversations matter. Why talking about food is actually talking about life. Because food is never just food. It's culture, family, memory, identity, comfort, joy, connection, and sometimes pain, all mixed together.
All mixed together, like the best recipes. You can't separate out the individual ingredients once they're combined. They become something new, something greater than the sum of their parts.
I think that's a good place to end. Thank you all for listening to us talk about food and memory and what it means to have favorite things. If this resonated with you, tell us in the comments what your favorite food is and why. Share your story, practice your English, connect with this community.
And remember, there's no wrong answer when it comes to favorite foods. Whatever brings you joy, whatever connects you to your past or your culture or your loved ones, that's valid. That matters.
If you enjoyed this conversation, please give us a thumbs up, share it with someone who loves food as much as you do, and subscribe to Everyday English Channel. Your support means everything to us.
Take care of yourselves. Eat foods you love. Create memories around the table. And don't let anyone make you feel guilty about your choices.
Until next time, remember that every meal is an opportunity to nourish yourself, to connect with others, to create memories, to enjoy being alive.
Goodbye, everyone.
Take care.